All right, we got Mike, we got Tara, Alyssa as well. Everybody was at Media Day. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Media Day fun.
Yeah.
We got to get that in. Tara's got that story just ahead. But in the meantime, yes, everybody's wondering about who's going to play quarterback. So let's talk about it. Got a feeling we may be talking about this for several days before a starter is named. Why? Just to reiterate Coach Morris's point, there's no timeline to name a starter. This has that weird vibe that for the first time in a handful of years, we're not talking about a guy named Allen under center. These guys competing are young. Cole Kelly has the most experience under his belt. He played 9 games last year, starting 4. Who will grasp the offensive scheme the best, getting the call in Chad's first year as head coach?
They got to feel the pressure, and I want to be, as I've shared with them, and Coach Craddock talks to it all the time. We want the same guy every day. I don't want a guy that's up here one day and down here the next. I want the same guy. Up 10 or down 10, I want to see the same guy that's going to keep everything under control and will his team to winning.
We're looking for a consistent quarterback that can consistently put his team in the end zone every time he's out there, whether if it's Ty with the 1s or Ty with the 2s or Cole with the 1s or Cole with the 2s or John Steven with the 3s or the 1s, whoever he gets reps. Who puts the ball in the end zone consistently, because that's what everybody wants to see.
Okay, so a lot of guys mentioned right now, but is this going to be shortened, Mike, or are we looking at a 3-quarterback race? What do you think?
Well, I just want everybody to understand how odd this is, because in the past, the coaches I've covered, when there was no clear-cut guy, they quickly named one, because the feeling is you got to have a lot of reps. You got to get whoever's ready to go, or whoever's going to do it ready to go. So I'm in new territory here. I think he means it when he says he may play 2 guys in the first game, and that's very unusual.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Mike, it's odd and unusual, but it's not odd and unusual for Chad Morris, because if you go back and look at all the times he's had a quarterback competition at Clemson in 2014, it was Cole Stout and Deshaun Watson. Cole Stout started those first 3 games, and then Deshaun Watson came in, and the rest is history. And then in 2017, it was Ben Hicks, Rafe Peavy, and DJ Gillens at SMU, and he didn't have a starter 9 days before that first game. So we might be in for quite a waiting game with this decision.
And it's unfortunate, though. It's not exactly like the Alabama quarterback situation that they've got going on. You've got several guys here that just they need work flat out. You've got a handful of new guys that are they're young. They're still learning how to adjust to all of these new things that Chad Morris is installing. And then you've got Dalton Hyatt, who he keeps bringing up. And I feel like we need to talk about him more simply because of the fact that he has brought him up several times. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But, Cole Kelly and Ty Story, brawn and brains is kind of the issue. You got to figure out which one you're going to go with.
But they say consistency. How are you going to build that consistency if you don't have a starter?
That's a buzzword right now. There's no question about it. Dalton Hyatt, you mentioned him.
Right.
Mike, what do you think about that? The fact that yesterday, everybody's saying, or Chad's saying anyway, nobody's talking about this guy right now.
Well, I think he's motivating him. I think he said, are you going to just sit back and let other people have the job, or are you going to fight for it? So that tells me maybe Chad Morris has looked at him and said, hey, what are you doing here? You need to get on the stick.
Alyssa, Ty Story is a guy that's very knowledgeable about this offense.
Sure.
He led Charleston to back-to-back state titles in high school. He's a guy who can move around. He extended plays in the spring. What about Ty?
When I talked to him yesterday, he said that this is kind of my time to shine. He really hasn't done a whole lot. He's kind of been watching from the sidelines. But he's got that mental capacity that you want in a quarterback. He's smart. He's not as big as Cole Kelly. His throwing arm is a little bit slower than Cole Kelly's, but that mental aspect, I think, is where he has the edge. And maybe that edges him out in this competition. But again, you got to put it in the end zone. Can Ty Story do that consistently? Unfortunately, we just haven't seen him do anything. So it's really hard to answer that question.
Got to put it in the end zone time and again. You've been listening to Joe Craddock. Tara, obviously, Connor Nolan, one of those guys that a lot of people were talking about. A guy who was electric at Greenwood. We'll get more to that coming up. Cross-train over and over.
Right.
We're hearing that in the preseason with these big nasties up front. A lot of moving parts with that group.
There's going to be a lot of cross-training with those guys. A lot of maybe the first 5 days, hey, you're playing left guard. Now I may need to see you at center. It's going to be a pretty fluid depth chart, and I'm going to make sure my guys understand you're going to get hired and fired on the spot. You're also going to move positions. It doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. I got to find the right rotation of guys.
I think it's healthy for us, honestly. I think it's good to be able to have more options heading into a game, instead of having that one set O line and then maybe having 1 or 2 guys that only can replace, we can shuffle around whatever happens.
All right, Yeldon's the guy. So, there's your focal point. So maybe when it's all said and done, he'll be the focal point at center. Who knows if Dylan Hayes can really step up? Mike, what do you think about the O-line right now?
Well, they supposedly lost weight and they're moving a lot better. There are all these things like the wider splits are going to help them. You know, it helps create running lanes. So we'll see if all that really is true. But the problem is that you're not going to know that honestly until you see them go up against SEC defensive linemen, linebackers, guys like that. They're top quality competition. So it may be a while before we really see, even if they look pretty good in the first few games, that A&M game, that'll tell you. Auburn, those two games, they'll tell you whether or not these linemen have come around.
Well, you know what? This is what I think. Keep the quarterback upright. You know, it's really hard to sit there and you can cross-train all you want to, but if these guys can keep whoever it is in that pocket and scrambling around from being on their back like Austin Allen was so many times last year, then that's a win for me.
Yeah, that was a bad visual.
Yeah, well, you know, but you got to bring that stuff up because it's like you can't keep doing this. And a lot of the reason why Arkansas was the way that they were offensively is because Austin Allen couldn't get rid of the ball.
You know why he's going to stay upright if it's Cole Kelly? Core strength.
Huge. That core
strength. Oh,
okay,
Kelly.
Taking a Drew Carroll book over here.
That's right. He's down to like 255 now, something like that.
Yep.
You know, as far as the O-line, Ty Clary got some reps early and often last year. You got to think, you know, this experience with some of these guys, that's going to be a lot better off. But, you know, then you got guys that have been quiet. Maybe Brian Wallace, let's talk about him, a guy at right tackle who seems cemented there.
Yeah, you know, when we talked to Fry about all that, he did say he was moving everyone around, and you know, not everyone's going to have an exact role, and I think that might help these guys in the season because of the fact that you've got guys who have knowledge of where each person is supposed to be at every spot. And heck, I mean, they struggled so much last season. If that helps them, I'm all for it.
I mean, it was just time and again. Facebook Live, talk about the offensive line over and over again.
Yeah.
It was rough the last couple of years.